and everyone feels content. With one hand on the wheel and your elbow resting on the window, you laugh, feeling the quiet satisfaction of a day well spent. As you approach familiar roads near your house, you glance in the rearview mirror to check your reflection. And then boom! Everything goes black. That's exactly what happened to Ethan Pritchard, a 19-year-old freshman linebacker for Florida State University. One moment he was dropping off a family member, and in the next, he was shot. Welcome back to In Plain Sight. I'm your host, Kitchi, and I'm here with Shauna, Taylor, and John. Are you guys ready for tonight's story?
I'm ready to dissect this case. It was hard to learn the background of how and why this story occurred because of how awful it is. Even so, it's real, and I believe stories like these deserve to be heard.
It's August 31st, 2025 in Havana, Florida. Even though it's technically fall, the weather is still very hot, a perfect day for a family gathering. That's exactly what Ethan was doing. He made a quick trip home to visit family before the busy season began. After the event, he drove his aunt and a young relative home. But in the distance, there's a group of people watching the car closely. It looks familiar to them. Instead of sparking curiosity, it invokes rage within them. They thought the car was a vehicle used by a rival gang, so they reached into their pockets and started shooting.
The odds of bullets hitting someone in a moving vehicle are incredibly low, but he was actually shot in the head. That's such a tiny area. That's terrible.
Fortunately, Ethan survived. Later in September 2025, 4 suspects were arrested. Jaden Bodison, Karen Miller, Germany Atkins, and an unnamed minor. Their ages ranged from 16 to 23. Bodison, Miller, and the minor were charged with 3 counts of attempted murder and 1 count of shooting into an occupied vehicle. Atkins was charged with 1 count of probation violation.
Not only is this story devastating, but it's also deeply disappointing. It represents the destruction of multiple lives, with 1 college student in critical condition and 4 others having thrown their lives away in a senseless act of violence.
I would like to highlight that all of the suspects were young, including both young adults and teenagers. I couldn't imagine myself being in a gang at my age, and in this universe, or any other, I could never see myself joining a gang as a teenager. This fact adds another layer of complexity to the situation. Their lives have barely begun, and it saddens me to think that violence can be perpetuated by such young individuals.
Now that we have some details of the case, I want to discuss the why. Why do people resort to immediate violence? What actions lead to such mistakes?
I think it's fear. As a gang member, you are in a constant loop of violence, and anyone who is a threat to the gang is also a threat to you. Over time, you become stuck in a state of paranoia, assuming that someone is out to kill you, so you feel the need to shoot first. That mindset leaves no room for reason.
Yeah, it all comes down to survival instinct. A lot of people forget that humans are animals too, and at the end of the day, we will fight to survive and act in ways we normally wouldn't when we feel our lives are threatened. In those moments, the idea of kill or be killed isn't up for debate. Unfortunately, as in this case, people often end up targeting the wrong person.
For the average person, the idea of kill or be killed seems like an extreme irrationality. After all, what are the chances you would ever find yourself in a situation that requires taking someone's life? However, for those involved in gangs, their brains are repeatedly exposed to violence, which greatly affects their perspective. Growing up in such a ruthless environment where gang-related casualties are common reshapes your view of what is normal. What might provoke deep thought in the average person is second nature to a person repeatedly exposed to violence.
In moments where we feel rushed, it's reaction over reason, impulse over information. But these actions create deep divisions within the community. Families are left traumatized. Entire neighborhoods remain on edge, anticipating the next shooting or tragedy, and innocent lives are lost or changed forever in the worst ways possible.
Wow. No one wins. The shooters lose their future, while the victims lose either their lives, their health, and their sense of safety.
There are truly no winners in this situation. Ethan is struggling through recovery, which includes healing from the trauma of the entire incident. The people who shot at him will carry the consequences of their actions for a long time, likely spending years in a jail cell. It's crazy how quickly things can change with just a simple action, a finger pressing on a trigger. One finger changed Ethan's entire life, And it didn't happen on a battlefield. It happened at home.
That's what gets me. Ethan was just at home, a place where you're supposed to feel safest. But if there's danger around your home, your sense of safety just disappears.
Taylor, that's very interesting. The idea of home losing its sense of safety is very striking. It was reported that after Ethan was shot, his family became terrified to drive through the neighborhood.
Yeah, that makes sense, because how can you unsee something like that? Home, a place where you grow, raise a family, and live, becomes a gravesite. Everything in the area will be a reminder that this is where it happened.
I imagine it's even worse for Ethan. Imagine recovering from what could have been a fatal head injury and trying to get back into a car. It must feel utterly terrifying. Even the sound of the engine could be a trigger. Or even just trying to walk down the corner where you were shot.
Ethan spent 39 days in the hospital before being released in October 2025 to a rehabilitation facility. 39 days of survival. 39 days of navigating a new reality. And that was only the beginning. What happened to Ethan has left a permanent mark on him and his future. His dad shared that when Ethan finally came home, he just sat quietly, as if searching for answers to why this had happened to him.
That's the kind of silence you can feel, even just hearing about it through a screen. It makes me imagine what it must have been like for him. The world kept moving while he was in the hospital, but for him, time just stopped.
That feeling is empathy. You're putting yourself in his shoes, imagining what it feels like to wake up every day and be hit with the realization that your entire life has been forever changed because of someone else's stupid mistake.
Recovery is always a long journey, especially for someone in Ethan's situation. It's not just about learning how to walk or move again. It's also about rebuilding the confidence in one's own body. It's about accepting that he may never play football, his dream, again. It's about trusting that he is safe and doesn't need to constantly look over his shoulder, worrying that his life will be disrupted again by a careless mistake. This kind of healing takes years, not just a couple of months.
I'd like to pivot to justice. 4 individuals have been arrested and taken into custody for their actions against Ethan. They will be held accountable for their crimes against him.
Yeah, that's great and all, but for me, justice doesn't mean anything without prevention. Catching them was great, but without prevention, there will be other stories like Ethan's.
Exactly. I feel that while we emphasize accountability for actions, we often overlook the need for healing. Ethan is facing a long journey of rehabilitation, coping with trauma, and undergoing surgeries. Justice should account for all of the struggles he will have to go through because of their actions.
Justice can take on many different meanings depending on one's perspective. For lawyers and judges, justice is defined by the charges that criminals face in court. However, for individuals like Ethan, his family, and the community affected by tragedy, justice is about healing, finding peace of mind, and striving to feel whole again. This form of justice cannot be attained within the walls of a courtroom.
Even though this event disrupted Ethan, his family, friends, and the community, it did not break them. A video clip of Ethan leaving the hospital went viral, showing people cheering, holding signs, and chanting his name.
The resilience that Ethan has is amazing. After seeing the support he was receiving, he smiled at them as if to say, "This will not stop me."
I watched the viral clip, and it was powerful to see how Ethan's community came together for him. Moments like that remind us that strength can come from being surrounded by people who care about us. While Ethan's support won't erase his trauma, it can help him make the burden feel a lot lighter.
We're reaching the end of this episode, so as always, I would like to hear everyone's final thoughts. Starting with myself, I believe that even though violence can sometimes be targeted, at other times it is not. In every situation, violence should always be the last resort. Ethan didn't deserve what happened to him, but neither did the man those 4 mistook him for. No one deserves to die simply because of gang drama. Ethan's story is yet another example of why gang violence should no longer be ignored or essentially tolerated. I hope Ethan's story inspires change in the system.
From Ethan's story, I learned the importance of slowing down before making assumptions or reacting. If any of the gang members had taken a moment to be patient, this situation might have been avoided.
For my final thoughts, I want to emphasize that safety is not a privilege. Everyone deserves to feel safe, regardless of who they are, especially at home. Home is a place that is held dear to many, a place where lasting bonds are formed, growth happens, and life's highs and lows are experienced.
For me, this story is an unfortunate reminder of how we often take life for granted. When we leave our houses, we all assume that we will be coming back. When we say goodbye to family and friends, we often say, "See you later," as if it's guaranteed that we will actually be able to see them again. Most of the time we do, but that doesn't mean we should take it for granted.
We all hope Ethan Pritchard has a quick and smooth recovery. I'm Kitchi, and this has been In Plain Sight. Thank you to my wonderful co-hosts, Shauna, John, and Taylor for joining me. And until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and never stop caring about the stories that could have been yours.